Good afternoon, folks. This is Bob from BBD with news with views. And today, this is just a little interesting readout from Ashley Tellis's book that he wrote, published in 2000, called Interpreting China's Grand Strategy. This is something that all our analysts and people who go all over the media should really take note of. And what they said, these guys said in 2000. Swain and Tellis argue that Chinese history, the behavior of earlier rising powers, and the basic structure and logic of international power relations all suggest that, although a strong China will likely become more reservative in the international arena, this possibility is unlikely to emerge before 2015-2020 at the earliest, right? To handle the situation, the author argued for the adoption by the United States of a sustained and prudent policy of realistic engagement with China that combines efforts to pursue cooperation whenever possible to prevent it, if necessary, the acquisition by China of capabilities that would threaten America's core national security interests, and to remain prepared to cope with the consequences of a more assertive China. There are two things that happened after this book came out. First, he hadn't planned on a person like Xi taking over. Xi actually fast forwarded this design that they had predicted back then, right? They thought this breakout period was going to happen after 2020. Xi came in, accelerated it, and actually brought out the assertive mode way before anybody else was prepared to do it, right? The downside for Xi was that when he was doing this, he just did not have all the marbles that were necessary to win this game. And this is where he lost the plot. And had he gone as per this book and unsheathed the sword maybe 2024-25, he probably have gotten what they thought he would have gotten, the leadership that he so hankered for. Now he's stuck because almost there's a global blowback, especially now with this latest issue with his aggressive behavior in the Himalayas, aggressive behavior in the South China Sea, and to top it all, the virus that started in China, and he actually ensured that it spread all over the world through it was through his non-compliance of his people who were scared of him, whatever it was. But they are solely responsible. See what he says, right? There's another really interesting article. Once internal order had been established and a regime's unity and authority had been assured, most Chinese regimes, both imperial and modern, would undertake efforts to assert or reassert direct control over the periphery and consolidate the territorial boundaries of the Chinese state at their maximum historical limits. This guy is telling us in 2000, and can you believe our Ministry of External Affairs, or whether it is this Prime Minister, whoever, were led down the garden path thinking that, we could do this personal relationship with Xi, right? And there are some people who actually drilled down and understood what's happening in China. And unfortunately, there's not a single person I know in our Jawaharlal Nehru or any other Sinophile or person who studied China who's ever actually gotten to this level, right? During the imperial era, such undertakings would sometimes cover several generations and were usually carried out by a series of early or founding emperors possessing extensive experience or interest in military affairs and the motivation and resources necessary for such a costly effort. Now it's not costly, they've made all the money, right? The foremost examples of imperial founding efforts to subdue or dominate periphery people occurred during the Han dynasty under Emperor Han Wudi against present-day Xinjiang, South China, Southeast Asia, and parts of southern Manchuria and northern Korea. The Tang dynasty under Emperor Tang Taizong against Central Asia, Mongolia, Tibet, Northeast India, and northern Korea. The Ming dynasty under the emperors Ming Hongwu and Ming Yongle against southern Manchuria, Central Asia, Mongolia, Burma, northern Korea, and Vietnam. And the Qing dynasty under Emperor Kangxi and Qianlong against Taiwan, Southeast Siberia, Mongolia, Central Asia, Tibet, and Nepal. Such efforts were not always successful. For example, the early Ming... the point is, this is what they're always up to, folks. We have to remember when we deal with them, right? And this is another interesting article that you need. Marxist-Leninist tenants drive China quest, says report, right? This is the same report which says that they want to give India a red nose, and this says very clearly, the ideological driving force behind China's quest for global dominance flows from an authoritarian, overarching sensibility based on its take on Marxist, Leninist tenets and is central to understanding the communist giant's actions, a recent US State Department report says. Okay, goes on to say that Chinese sensibilities is authoritarian, collectivist and imperial. Two streams of ideas nourish its seminal CCP writings and speeches proclaim cardinal tenets of Marxism-Leninism as interpreted by successive Chinese CCP leaders beginning with Mao Zedong. Right? Then it says that these are things that we really need to take to heart, right, before making policies as far as China is concerned. The report notes, as have several commentaries, that Xi, just like China's founding leader Mao Zedong, is completely dedicated to the goal of ensuring the supremacy of the Communist Party in the affairs of China. The model seeks to remodel the world order that the Chinese leadership tells its citizens is unjust and Western oriented, while sidestepping issues of human rights. They don't really care. They're going to stamp all over us, man, if you give in now. We just can't, should really, actually, South Block should be studying this book and these reports in detail. Right? The report notes the ideological indoctrination is among the party's paramount concerns, and she is determined to put the power of the state to back a single point understanding of economics, politics, and international relations. There is no doubt, and never been a doubt in my mind, what China really is up to, right? It's just that all the other folks that keep playing this balancing game in whether it's in what we call today's Lutyens Delhi, or people, in the media, or the editors, which have been totally globally co-opted and corrupted by China and Chinese money. More after the break. Welcome back, folks. Breaking news. Apparently, New York Times reporting that there was a first meeting between Benjamin Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel, and MBD of Saudi Arabia. Unbelievable. Shifting sands of the Middle East. I guess they wanted to do this quickly in a hurry before Biden took over, right? They want to make this a fait accompli, though one had kind of figured that after Bahrain, which couldn't have gone ahead and recognized Israel without the blessings of Saudi Arabia was going to come out of the shadows, but this has happened far faster than one would have thought. Whoa! And definitely leaves this man out in the cold. Erdogan. Turkey sees itself as part of Europe. I'm not sure in which form or shape it sees itself part of Europe. Absolutely not in the democratic credentials. Definitely not with his with his Islamic bent. I don't think I think the Europeans should just, and not with his conflict in the Mediterranean Sea, not with his conflict with Greece. I am not sure whether anybody in Europe should actually take this man seriously anymore, folks. Well, it's a done deal, right? He should be out of here. But let's just see. And like I was telling you, in my previous segment, where you've seen how all the dynasties essentially have tried to control the periphery and have had an imperialistic bent towards it. Right. I mean, they've bloody encroached everywhere. Vietnam, Northeast India, Mongolia, Manchuria, Siberia, everywhere, right? In that sense, both RCEP and BRI are other forms of the same imperialism, and CPEC and their encroachment of Ladakh. It's nothing but an extension of that. So it means it's back to the same old philosophy. That ain't changing. If anybody wanted to know why China is doing it, well, you have it in their history, right? So when somebody, Biswajit Dhar writes this, given government's critical response to RCEP and the possibility that China will play a key role in the East Asian region through the FTA, will there also be a rethink on the 3-decade-old Look East Act policy, one of the more enduring pillars of India's global economic integration policy? Well, let's just not worry about the global integration economic, right? And it definitely, what we've done by rejecting the RCEP does not play into our geostrategic interest. But even then, I think maybe this part of the market may have run its play. Now the action, in my opinion, has moved west towards Africa, back to the United States, back to Europe. Time for them has come, and as like Shishir Gupta writes, and which is something we should be noting, people like Dhar should a good response to Dhar. Why India was right in staying out of RCEP. He said, RCEP is being touted as a triumph of multilateralism in an age of protectionism. But it is, at best, regionalism, and it militates against the multilateralism pursued through the WTO, folks. And that is something you should all note. It's important for all of us to note. Then it says, FTA did not supply shocks and disruptions during the pandemic. Supply chain resilience, trust and efficiency have become more important these days and will influence trade, right? Then you have, will RCEP shape or influence strategic relations? Absolutely, as I've always been saying, unlikely. Then he says, to deepen trade and economic ties in the Indo-Pacific region and with current RCEP members, India does not need RCEP as much as it needs to get its own house in order. For a start, it must make its industry innovative and competitive, its research and development on par with the best, its logistics and trade infrastructure efficient, its human resources skilled, its financial markets healthy and capable of low-cost finance, its administrative and legal systems responsive, and its taxation stable, competitive, and predictable. This is the mission of Atmanirbhar. Folks, what he's written is actually hits you in the solar plexus. It all depends on us. RCEP or free trade ain't going to give us all that, folks. All that does is makes us lazy and incapable, like most of our corporates did over this period of free trade, because all they were doing was no money spent on research and development, just complaining and rebranding and just becoming screwdriver technology. To become Atmanirbhar, you had to not have such, it just won't help this RCEP for no matter what he says, right? And when people are saying that, look at it this way, right? RCEP is not going to have any strategic intent. Really, these are disconnected, the two, because here you have Indian naval drills with Thailand, Singapore begin. Now, on one side, all these nations have signed the RCEP. On the other side, they're doing drills with everybody else. And Thailand, one of the closest allies in the ASEAN of China, it seems to be double thinking. It's not bought the Chinese submarine. It's not allowed the canal project connecting South China Sea with the Bay of Bengal. It is now doing these drills with Singapore and India. So you got to think about this, right? When you completely keep talking about RC, but you just don't mix the two. Strategic, economic, two different interests. Right now, there's no linkage. And then you have this. JEM's Nagrota plot could be a joint Pak-China effort. Terrorists use tunnel to infiltrate. Folks, welcome. I'm glad our strategic community and our analysts have woken up to this. I've been saying that this terrorism is nothing but as a Jews-China link. As he says, top sources claim that the whole episode could be a joint Pakistan-China effort. Both China and Pakistan have strongly criticized India's move to abrogate J&K's special status and divide the erstwhile state into two union territories. The announcement of the DDC election appears to have unnerved them. Why? Because all of a sudden they lose a major block to nail India, which is lack of democratic process. And then it says the J&K issue was discussed when the Chinese delegation led by CMC's vice chairman Xu Pilang visited Pakistan in August end. Both sides have agreed to closely coordinate for strategic balance in the region. That's including, folks, including terrorism. And here,
think of natural products. Think of Sada Jeevan.
And finally, folks, I think our Look East policy has run to its end. It's reached its sell-by date. It's now time. The cycle is swimming around. As the cycle is swinging around, it is back to look west as where it started. So let's not just get stuck like we got stuck with the USSR and Russia. Let's just not get stuck with the Look East. Let's move. Let's be nimble. Let's be fast. Action is moving to the west, folks. Jai Hind.